Hello, everybody. I'm Alfred, and you're listening to Alfred's Daily Q&A live stream podcast. This is a daily live stream Q&A that I hold. You can type in whatever questions you have in the comment section in an existing life or in an old life. If the life is, live at the moment, type in whatever question you want. Even though I'm talking on a particular theme, I will get back to the questions that I saw that are, reasonable questions, because some people will just pop in and ask crazy questions. That is normal in lives, but hopefully that is not going to be the culture of those in my viewership. So, that being said, this particular live, I would like to talk about the white genocide in South Africa, as well as the poor treatment of Nigerians in South Africa. It is no secret. Both of those things are not secrets. Now, when it comes to the white genocide, the way white people are treated, let's, not even talk about the genocide parts. Let's leave that off for now, because there are a lot of people that want to debate that. Let's hold off from that. Let's talk about the treatment of white people in Africa, in South Africa. How are white people being treated in South Africa? And I'm not talking about tourists, because tourists have a completely different experience. I'm talking about when somebody lives there. When someone says, let me live in South Africa, and their skin is white, what is their experience? Whether you're somebody that came with colonization or somebody that moved there after colonization. Because the reality of Africa is that a lot of the things that are so-called brought by the white men during colonization were not brought by the white men during colonization. They are things that came after. That is the reality. Now, there were things that came with colonization, but many of those things have faded away or passed away or did not even create a lasting enough work. The reason why Africa is still subject to colonial powers is not because of what happened in the past. It's because of what is still happening today. You see, it's because of the organizations like the World Health Organizations, it's because of the UN, it's because of the African Union. All these organizations are beholden to the United Nations. All these organizations are beholden to the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, and all these type Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They are beholden to the Rockefeller Foundation and their creations. All these so-called international charities, and understand how politics works in Africa. African politicians are sponsored. And who have the most money? The foreigners, So there are foreign powers that sponsor African leaders. So why won't they do the bidding of their sponsor? And again, the wealth that African leaders steal, where do they keep it? In foreign countries, in foreign bank accounts. Do you think that the leaders of those countries don't know? If those presidents, for example, if a president steals billions and keeps it in his bank account in France, don't you know that the president of France can say, I will expose you and publicly bring out and return the money to your country if you do not do so and so. So play ball. And the politician will have to play ball. Whether or not you may see a politician that genuinely hates white people. He may hate the leaders of France, the leaders of Europe. But the point is that he's now in a situation where he has done something wrong that the people will not forgive him for. He has betrayed the people. And now he's been blackmailed to follow this path. And that is the story of a lot of politicians. It's not new. Look at, what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. That guy was secretly recording pedophilic adventures of politicians and powerful men in Epstein Island. Do you think that was just for fun? No, that is a business structure. People ask where the Epstein get his money. When you can blackmail is big business. If you look at movies of the 30s, a lot of the movies focus on the topic of blackmail. Blackmail is a lot of money. If you look at even, the girl that starred in Smallville, Alison Mack, that was found to be part of Nixon, and basically, the second in command to Kito Reni, you know, that guy, what was his stick? He turned a self-help organization that he founded into a blackmail organization. And you have to be aware of this kind of thing. It's just like Scientology. If you want to join Scientology, one of the things they ask you is you have to tell them a secret that can destroy you that nobody else knows. Now that is you giving them a license to destroy you if you betray them. Kate Rennie did the same thing. When you have a bunch of powerful people, a bunch of rich people coming to you that they have this and this problem and they want you to solve it, and in exchange for giving them the advice, the counsel, or perhaps the companionship or whatever it is that you can see psychologically, you can help them out with, or create the illusion that you are helping them out with something. You now want in exchange a situation where you can blackmail them, and then you can be collecting payments from them on a regular basis. That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. So blackmailing of politicians and powerful figures is not new. So it is not enough that you know a politician that he may be a good person. A politician can get himself in a scrape because he did, one corrupt thing or the other. And now he's being blackmailed. He has to follow and obey foreign governments. So there is that matter with the African politicians. But what I want to point out is that a lot of the nonsense that people say in the quote-unquote Black Power movement is lies and wrong. Like there are a lot of people who say that the Christianity came, with colonization, that is the white man. When they see somebody who is a Christian in Africa or Nigeria, you can see that attitude on Twitter, now X. You see them say, oh, Christianity, it is, you are falling in love with the whatever of your oppression, the religion of your oppression, that religion was created to control men. If religion was created to control men, why is it specifically, and they are saying it to refer to Christianity, why is it that Christianity is attacked by every dictatorship? Anytime there's a dictatorial ruler, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, whatever, they go after Christianity first. They don't want people to convert to Christianity. If Christianity was created to control men, then politicians will love it. Especially dictators. Dictators will love it. And, understand when they put it like, Christianity was created, by the white man, then Jesus should have been an American or an European at the very least. And the whole story of Jesus should have been set in Europe, not Israel. The Jews don't even like, Christians. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe Jesus is the Messiah. So the nation that, you could say could benefit politically from the way the Bible is written, that nation doesn't even approve of Jesus being the Messiah. Unlike when it comes to Islam, if you're a Muslim, you have to love Saudi Arabia more than your own country. Your loyalty has to be there. And you have to pay your whatever dues to, Mecca. Because wherever Mecca is, and Medina, those holy sites for Muslims that is, grained in stone as places where you must revere, and those places are Muslim places. So whoever is the king or the ruler of that country benefits politically from that kind of status. So all Muslims around the world, if the world becomes 90 or 80% Muslim, by default, Saudi Arabia becomes the world power, even without doing anything, because everybody has to bow to Mecca. So if you want to bring that kind of accusation, it's actually the Quran that fits it, not the Bible. So you have to look at the reality of those things. When you look at the idea that that it was colonizing that brought Christianity to Africa, when you see Christians, you say, all these Christians in Africa, they're in love with the religion of their oppressor. First of all, the white man has turned away from Christianity. The white man is now pushing atheism and LGBT and all that nonsense. The white man is fighting Christianity, now. But that being said, if that logic was true, that the Christianity of Africans is a form of Stockholm syndrome, and it came with the colonialists, then it will just be Catholic churches. But look around Africa. What is the Catholic Church doing? The Catholic Church is small in Africa. All the Christians in Africa, the big moves of Christianity, the biggest churches, the biggest movements are not Catholic. Even the Anglicans are bigger than the Catholic. During the colonization, it was just Catholic. Only Catholic. But meet someone who is a professing Christian in Africa. Anybody that you see preaching the gospel in Africa, telling people about Jesus, evangelizing, or any posters, where someone is talking about Jesus or trying to, holding a crusade or a conference about Jesus, is it Catholic? No. And I understand something about the Catholics. The Catholics don't play around. They don't believe that all of us are the same. The Catholics branded everybody else, every other denomination, as Protestants. The doctrine of the Catholic is that we are the right ones and everybody else is wrong. So the version of Christianity that came with colonization, and it did not even come hand in hand. It was not mixed together and packaged together. Because if it was, it would have never left just like Islam. A lot of the nations that are Islamic countries now were not Islamic countries before. Pakistan wasn't always an Islamic country. Afghanistan wasn't always an Islamic country. A lot of these Middle East countries, they were conquered. But they were conquered by people who prioritized and were moved by Islam. So they mixed the conquering, they did it together. Now there's no other thing there, just Islam. Do you think that the white man couldn't learn how to do that or couldn't do that? The problem with trying to use Christianity to colonize people, or like the Quran, because the Quran is built specifically, it is built with a political warlord mindset. Because if you look at the history of Prophet Muhammad, he was a warlord and he taught in the way of how to conquer countries. Christianity is not written like that. Christianity is all about free will and the individual. Look how Jesus ignored politics. Understand that when you read the Bible, during that time Jesus walked the earth. The Jews were second-class citizens. They were a conquered people. They had to answer to Rome. You understand? Like the leaders of the Jews couldn't even crucify Jesus by themselves. They had to go to Pontius Pilate, who was appointed by the Caesar over that region. They had to seek permission from a Roman leader to crucify Jesus. They couldn't do it by themselves. They were not an independent people. They were not an independent nation at that point. They were conquered. They were under Rome. You see, and Jesus, in spite of that, completely ignored politics in the New Testament. He ignored, taking political power in the New Testament. So that is something very important you have to say about Christianity. So it is not built into Christianity. Taking political power is not built into Christianity, but it is built into Islam. That is why every nation, when a nation becomes 40% Islam, it will soon become completely a Muslim nation. Because there are certain steps that are outlined in the Quran as commandments that they have to follow. And that leads to complete Islamization. They will ask for Sharia law. They will ask for a Sharia-based policing system. They will ask for Sharia and Islamic political leaders. And there are a lot of things on how they will treat those who are not Islam and force people to convert to Islam, to pay fines if they are not Islam, if they are not Muslim and all of that. So all those things, there's a political plan and agenda that has worked for so long that is effective on how to take over nations politically. That is in Islam, that is not in Christianity. So Christianity is the worst way to try to do it. And, it's all about love in Christianity and, the individual. That is why the British colonialists, what they actually did when it comes to Christianity was that they just gave the priests, the Catholic priests, access that you have our protection, you can go in to Africa. And if you look at certain the old letters, they put them that they should not preach or say anything that will jeopardize or go against colonization, or that will inspire people to rise up against colonization. And that same decree and order was given to the native doctors and the African religious leaders of African religions that worship African gods, the Amadioha, the Sangwa, and the rest of them, the Ogun, and so on and so forth. And that is why those leaders still existed, and those belief systems still were left. They were not touched. You see, the voodoo practices and all of that, because the voodoo witch priests worked with the colonialists. A lot of people don't understand colonialism is different from conquering. Colonialism cannot work without partnership. Colonialism is all about partnership. You go into a nation and then you partner with the leaders of the nation. Colonialism is basically mother nation and children nation. Colonialism is basically like a corporate takeover. Think of it as a corporate takeover. Let's look at, like, for example, there's a fast food, or there's a restaurant or a hotel somewhere. Then there's a bigger hotel chain or restaurant chain, whether it is McDonald's or whether it's a hotel chain like the Hilton or whatever. Then they move in and then they buy out the smaller restaurants or hotel because they see the potential in it. That cannot work without an arrangement between the existing leaders. And then when they take over, it is what the bigger conglomerate says that determines how the new subsidiary, the newly acquired company, how it runs is based on what the major conglomerate says. So in colonization, let's say Britain is colonizing Africa. When they come, they make deals. Even though in this case it is by force. There's a lot of coercion and force in, so it is not like a normal measure or corporate takeover in today's world, But they need the leaders there, the African leaders, to work hand in hand with them. And then the leaders in Britain, we call the shots on how Africa is run. That is what colonization is. That is why we still have African leaders that their bloodline can be traced to way back, way before colonization, and you can even go further to perhaps even the days of the 1st century, the Bible days. That same bloodline for some of those African leaders, but of course, there are a lot of tribes breaking apart and tribes mixing and growth and so many things. But what I'm saying is that a lot of those bloodlines predate colonization. Why weren't they killed? Why weren't they destroyed? For those bloodlines to continue, those bloodlines had to have submitted to the colonialists and work hand in hand and agree to the colonialists. Keep in mind that it is these same African leaders that sold other Africans they do not like, that belong to enemy tribes, to the white man as slaves, and also to the Arabian as slaves. So understand these things. It's funny how a lot of Africans try to ignore these facts, but these are facts. You can't erase this. But that being said, about all these things, I've said so much, and I'm supposed to be focusing on the treatment of white people. Now we know that there was a lot of injustice done to Africa, during that slavery era and colonization era. But we cannot ignore the fact that it started with Africa. We cannot ignore the fact that the colonization does not work without cooperation. African leaders cooperated. And now there's a new form of colonization that is happening now that is through organizations and pacts and all these deals, all these UN and all these treaties, a lot of African leaders have to take permission from France and Britain before they do a lot of things. That is them that put themselves in that position. Look at Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore decided to walk out of those situations by himself. The same way African leaders can choose to. But the problem with Africa is that there are so many traitors, not few. There are so many traitors, and if one leader says he wants to walk away from that deal and make his African nation independent, there are other people that those deals can be made with. And that's the same thing that happened the first time during colonization. If an African king, like somebody like King Jaja of Opobo, he refused to work with the white man, there are other people from Opobo that will work with the white man and will help in killing him and now become the new king. And basically, the person that the white man will now work with. So he's just basically the person cooperating and just the face for the white man. So that has always happened. So we cannot ignore the Africans' role in that. The whole thing has no power without Africa backing it up. The whole slavery thing, you cannot come, because keep in mind that Africa is surrounded by water, the Atlantic Ocean. So for slavery to work, they had to take away the slaves on ships, and the white man had to come on ships. Attacking by ship is a death mission, unless the people you are coming to see think you're friendly, because humans can't swim. Water is not a natural habitat. So when they see the ship coming, all they have to do is, number one, they can swim out to the ship and meet you and kill you on the ship. But the most effective thing is to use catapults and just put burning hay and start shooting it towards the ship. When the ships catch on fire, it doesn't matter how many cannons you have, on the ship. You are just ships. Even if you are 20 or 200 ships, which is a lot to come out that journey in those olden times. Even if you are 200 ships, by the time, there is a lot of, balls of hay, balls of grass, all kinds of things that are flaming, thrown on your ship. All the ships burn. What are you going to do? Remain in the water and drown, or stay there forever? If it doesn't matter how good a swimmer you are in soup. Because what are you going to do? Now swim towards the land where the natives we dissect you into bits and pieces. So the colonization thing and the whole slavery thing could not work without African leader support. So we cannot ignore that. But a lot of people love to ignore that and blame the white man. And now you are blaming the descendants and descendants of white men that have nothing to do with all that. But that being said, the treatment of white people in South Africa, we cannot ignore that. The way, even with the laws that are passed and to ensure, the same way they are doing quota systems in America with inclusivity, at least before Trump, that they have to be this percent of people gay, or this percent of people have to be women. They have to be this percent of people have to be quote unquote South African. And this fits into the hatred of Nigerians, because Nigerians are also black. And you cannot often tell the difference between a Nigerian and a South African unless from the accents, or they tell you that they are Nigerians. Now they are, in some cases, certain facial features, but going by facial features is not a sure banker. So that, and the fact that Nigerians are the most hardworking in Africa. Among all Africans, the most hardworking people are Nigerians, the biggest hustlers. So Nigerians out hustle every African everywhere they go. And Africa and Nigerians have a large population. So whether they go to Ghana, they out hustle all Ghanaians. And they soon become the richest people in Ghana. So the Ghanaians start looking at them somehow. They out hustle South Africans. Nigeria has a lot of the tribes have been merchants in their blood, especially the Igbo. And this is not just because I'm Igbo. I'm just saying it's a fact. Igbos are good at trade. The Yorubas also, negotiations. When it comes to the houses and those guys, they are nomads, and they, with cattle and all that. So there's a lot of there's a culture that have always existed of you have to work hard to survive. So it has created generations of people who it is ingrained in them to work extra hard, harder than everybody else. And Nigerians work harder than everybody else. And another thing, Nigerians are willing to work for little in a country like South Africa because number one, they're sending money home, and number two, they don't mind working twice as hard. And therefore, even if they may get less, they will end up getting paid more, even though they work more. They will make more than the South African. So there are so many factors. And a lot of South Africans are looking at the same way, because that is another thing with all this racism and bigotry. When you support it on one hand, they are supporting it all true. And there's one thing I have to bring to your notice. There's something that somebody said. You know, the fact that you may see somebody that is crippled or they cannot walk, there in sickness, doesn't mean that you think that person is a good person suffering. If that person could walk, you don't know if that person could be a rapist. Now, I'm not saying this so that you would think that if somebody is crippled, that person is there because they could be a terrible person and making the war worse if they could walk. No, but I'm just saying that there is also that possibility, and that is the situation. There are a lot of people that if they were not crippled, they would be carrying guns and they would be armed robbers. So if they were healed, they will be killing people and raping people. This does not apply to all, because a lot of people see people in situations, they see somebody with a hand cut off for this or that, or with this sickness and this, and you feel pity for them. There is that place, but don't also go further and assume that if all were right, that they'll automatically be better. It's just like somebody may be experiencing racism and discrimination. It doesn't mean that if that person was not experiencing racism and discrimination, they will not be the biggest racist themselves. And I said all that to say this. South Africans are the biggest racists. Africans, look at America. The black Americans, they're the biggest racists. Black power today, especially in America, it's all about being racist to white people. Just like feminism today, it's all about hating men. It is not about quote-unquote equal opportunities. And in reality, women don't really want equal opportunities. They just want favorable and better opportunities. Because if you want equal opportunities, you want to work in the rigorous jobs too. You want to be garbage men. You have a quota system for there to be garbage women. You have a quota system for women to work in oil rigs. 50% of our workers have to be women, otherwise the oil rig does not start. Women only want that quota system equality in cush office jobs that have a little stress and a lot of pay. If you want the quota system, go all the way. Let no garbage company be able to operate unless their employees are 50%, they employ 50% female. Let no company that does drilling, deep sea drilling, a lot of the sewage stuff, the companies that, these guys that go into sewages and underground and clean up the place and all that kind of thing. And, the guys that work in gold mines, the guys that work in silver mines and all those kinds of work, even deep sea diving, let it be 50% women. Otherwise, it doesn't go ahead. There are a lot of risky jobs. If you want, take it to the military. The military has to be 50% women foot soldiers. The women in the military are not given the same tax, like heavy duty tax like men. And that's why there are certain divisions that are for more heavy tax that require more training, that there are no women. Like the Navy SEALs and all those kinds of things. Why don't you make it, there must be 50% women? And it's that same nonsense that created, the disaster when Trump was shot and we saw the women, that was shouting, what are we doing? What are we doing? Shouldn't you have gone through that kind of scenario and that possibility a long time ago? But women react differently because women are built differently, and we should and celebrate those differences, the differences between men and women, and make it and create a better world with that. men focus on their strengths, women focus on their strengths. Not trying to deceive ourselves like there's no gender because of one demonic agenda that has to be pushed. So that being said, the fact that somebody may be crippled or whatever doesn't mean that if that person could walk, that person, the person will be helping to make the world a better place. That person might be a killer or a rapist. South Africans, the fact that they face discrimination in the past doesn't mean that they cannot be people who discriminate against others now. They are super racist. With the laws, look at even Elon Musk cannot start a company in South Africa because of the color of his skin. Keep in mind that all the things that Elon Musk brought into this world, if he remained in South Africa, if South Africa made those opportunities available to white people, all the greatness and all the money that is going into the American economy because of Elon Musk's businesses, and Elon Musk, a lot of his business is powered by grants, government grants. That is not going to ever happen in South Africa. South Africa is not going to dish out money to a white man who is South African. So if that situation, that we can see plainly in Elon Musk's case, all the advantages and everything he has brought into this world would have been done in South Africa for South Africa, but because South Africans want to be racist and hate white people, because that is the stupidity. We live in a different time now. White people, and this is why I'm against all this pro-black, because pro-black is never about improving the lives of people with dark skin color. It's not about them reading, it's not about them learning, it's not about them, becoming successful. It's about them blaming the white man and hating the white man and making sure that they can twist everything to make it the white man's fault. Just look at Dr. Umar. The PDD situation, we will come up with a result because of racism that targeting quote unquote black men. Any news story that Dr. Umar hears that involves a quote unquote black person, he will twist it in one way and make it about racism. That is his thing, and is monetized. That is what the quote unquote pro black movement is all about. It's all about monetizing, black supremacy, black quote unquote black hatred for white people, making them be you're a bigger victim. Victims are not winners. Many years ago I heard a sermon called "Victim or Victor," by Pastor Chris Yakuloni, and it really stuck with me. You have to understand you are either a victim or a victor. And it doesn't matter what you went through in life. It doesn't matter what happened to you. If you like, let it be somebody that your autobiography and Oliver Twist is the same. Whereas when you were born, even perhaps you can even be worse than Oliver Twist. And in your own case, when you were born, your mother threw you into a dustbin. You somehow managed to crawl out of the dustbin. Then dogs and sheep or wolves found you and then raised you. No human being wanted you. Then somehow you managed to suffer, and you are here today. You cannot keep blaming your past for your situation. You have to look forward and build. That's the mentality of a victor. You cannot be a victim. You cannot, and a lot of quote unquote the black power, whatever, it's all about creating victims. It's all about pushing that victim mindset. Oh, because of this, because of that, you are where you are. So, and that's why they will never succeed, and they will never create people who are successful. And that is actually also why new Africans that come from Africa into America become successful within less than a year or two, before the African American that has always been there ever becomes successful. Nigerians are ahead of African Americans. Nigerians that just are fresh up the boats, they just came, they just landed, did 1 or 3 years of schooling. The African American has access to the same schools, and are often, they are recipients of student loan programs and all kinds of free schooling before, campus, before university, before college, and all that. They are recipients of all that. But the African comes and he's paying school fees as a foreigner, which is more than the average school fees. So he has to pay it first before he even learns. But yet he's ahead. of the African American. Why? Because of the mentality is different. But the generation of the Nigerian who mixes with the African American and gets that African mentality of victimhood will stop succeeding. Because now you now have excuses on why you cannot advance. If that is all it is. You are giving excuses and reasons. This is the reason why I'm not here. This is the reason. But somebody who does not see location, there's a beautiful story about a frog who won um, a jumping match, with other frogs, and they asked the frog at the end, how come you're able to jump it? That don't that the here it's impossible to jump. It's impossible for a frog to jump. And then they found out that that frog was deaf. The frog did not hear that it was impossible to jump. So the frog just jumped and succeeded. So that's like a bedtime story, a beautiful situation, but it shows so much about life. And, what people believe, what you choose to believe really affects you. So when you are believing in all the disadvantages that are working against you, instead of thinking of solutions and how can you get, is there a wall in front of me? Can I climb over the wall? Can I push down the wall? Or should I need to go around the wall? Rather than you set up placards and start protesting, look at this wall that is in front of me that is stopping me from getting to where I'm going. And then you complain and complain, and you do that all your life. You don't make progress. But others move ahead. When they meet obstacles, you protest in front of the obstacle forever and ever. And you think that is greatness. And you are surprised that other people are coming and advancing and you are still there. So that is the way it is. But when you look at, like, there's a documentary that Lawrence Southern put out years ago about the white genocide in South Africa. Now we are moving to the genocide part of the discussion because we already know how white people are treated, with the quota system and with all kinds of things. There's a lot of discrimination. Everything in South Africa is not about how can we make South Africa rich, how can we make South Africa better, how can we improve on our own. It's all about, we are exploited. How can we get rid of the white man? The white man has a white town where they are targeted, they are gathered together and targeted, even though they are legally South African citizens. The white man this, the white man that. The white man controls so much. But it's the white man that is adding so much to your country. I've already explained to you, look at all the things that Elon Musk would have brought to South Africa, that would have started. Tesla should have started in South Africa. The story of Twitter should have been a story of an African company buying Twitter. The story of SpaceX should have been, Africa is now launching rockets into space. That should have been a story of SpaceX. If the South African government embraced white South Africans and had made opportunities available, there will be no need for Elon Musk to travel to become an American citizen because all the opportunities would have been available. But people don't see. So South Africa is keeping themselves poor with the choices that they are making. They are keeping themselves beggars. And after all this nonsense, they will now still have to, like they went to Trump and beg for grants and loans and, assistance and aid. We are not even going to talk about the fact that, the other money that is gotten from Africa's resources, where is it going? Because a lot of these African leaders are stealing it. And there's also the case of these people don't know how to manage. You are not better at managing countries and nations like the old Western nations before they started getting influenced by Democrats and leftists and LGBTQ and all these people that have now brought all kinds of illegal immigrants. Before all of that, the management is different. Some people are better at managing than others. Some people know how to make a country great. Some people don't. Look at Tinubu. Tinubu knows how to win elections, but he doesn't know how to run a country. That is the fact. He doesn't have to make a country great. He just knows how to win elections by hook or by crook. Whether it is legally or illegal, whether it is through theft or through honesty, both sides of the aisle. Tinubu knows how to function and win elections through that, by hook or by crook. But he doesn't know how to make a nation great. And those are the things that are wrong with Africa. A lot of African leaders are good at giving speeches, but they don't know how to run anything. They cannot run a Fortune 500 company, but yet they want to run a nation. Many of them never even owned a kiosk. They don't know how to run a small supermarket, but they, because of their good in giving speeches, and you can rile up Africans by saying a lot of anti-white things, and then they will love you, and then they will vote for you because you say a lot of anti-white things. Then when you go into that office now, it's all about stealing money and looting money, and then you partner with those in the Western world who want to exploit Africa and help them exploit Africa even further. And that's what's going on. Now we can look at the treatment of Nigerians. You can just go online and see what is happening there, how Nigerians are being treated. This life is getting very long now. You can just do a quick search. One of the things that prompted me to make this video is the comments that I've been receiving. Someone posted a comment about Donald Trump and said Donald Trump is no longer sending funding to South Africa, that he has shut down that door. Is it America's responsibility to be feeding South Africa, and then South Africa to be now saying that America that is feeding them is racist? Can't you feed yourself? Can't you build your own nation? Is it America's responsibility? Unless you want to be colonized, do you want to donate South Africa to America? So now South Africa is a colony of America. Is that what you want? Because that is the only scenario where it will make sense for America to be sending you money obligatory. It's not their obligation to be sending you money, But most of the comments that I received after I posted that, they should stop killing white people in South Africa and they should stop treating Nigerians in South Africa like unwanted pests. Let me just read out some of the comments I've been getting. You're an uninformed fool. That is one from Muzukulu Kampadala, whatever South African name. There is another one. This is 13th Bona. That is the username. It says, because Europe destabilizes African nations. I've already addressed that. Then this one, Ringo Starr. This an AI bot, because there's no way a black man really says that. Then this one from somebody called MTHOKO, a South African name. He says, far, I wish you can be deported back to your country. Homeboy, I'm not in South Africa. I am not in South Africa. But that is what he's saying. So there are the comments I'm receiving. This one says, you are speaking of your own ass. And he puts a meme of a monkey. This is a South African. His name is Lindu Kule Ebelzuma. And he puts, you are speaking of your own ass. And then put a picture of a monkey. So now, this is the funny thing about racism. So you want to demonize the white man and say white people are racist and all of that. But now, who is now calling people monkey? Who is now using images of monkey to describe people? And understand, when it's just like a brother calling his brother a bastard, you are insulting yourself. If there are two brothers, you have the same parents, and one brother calls another brother bastard, you are insulting yourself. If your brother is a bastard, you are also a bastard because you are brothers. It is same thing like people who call Donald Trump orange man bad. If there's something wrong with Donald Trump's skin color because he's white, you that are also white, the white people that are saying orange man bad, you two that are also white, you are insulting yourself. Now this one that you are calling, if somebody whose skin is also like you, dark like yours, you are calling him monkey and putting meme of monkey. You're insulting yourself because that's your skin color too. And this is South African that knows I'm a Nigerian, and this is his, because my picture is down every time because I made it clear, so he knows, and that is what he's attacking. So this is the treatment. You can see the treatment of Nigerians by South Africans. South Africans hate Nigerians with a passion. There are many instances online, and like we saw these instances where South Africans were booking Ubers in Nigeria from South Africa. So when an Uber driver goes there, it will now be like, it's false, so nobody really ordered the ride. So they were doing it, and it started creating problems. So these Uber drivers, Nigerians, are losing money, and this is something that South Africa started. And it now ended up, so Nigerians were like, okay, let's do it back to you. And Nigerians started doing it back to them. and even going to the extent of ordering coffins for people. So somebody will deliver coffin to their house. And it is fake. It is a Nigerian that made them send it to that South African house. And it's like pay for the coffin that you asked to be delivered to your house. So Nigerians took it, you cannot outdo Nigeria. Number one, the population is more, and number two, they are more technical. Nigerians are more tech savvy than South Africans. So Nigerians won that war, and then political leaders started coming and begging. The president of South Africa came and was begging on TV. Even some people like Soro, where the Nigerian activists, that organized the end bad governance in Nigeria protests, now came and was begging Nigerians to calm down, to stop. So, but that was South Africa. Even the case with Chidinma that won, that got second place in Miss World. She won most beautiful girl in South Africa because of her Nigerian name. They looked for an offense and a reason to deport that woman. Then they found something with whether her father or her mother, and their citizenship. Then even though because she was born there, that is how they made it clear they had to disqualify her, they had to, they attacked this woman. And Nigerians embraced her and brought her here. And she now went to Miss World and represented Nigeria in Miss World. But look at how South Africans treated her just because she's Nigerian. And that is the reality. South Africans hate Nigerians. You can see these comments don't stop. Look at this one by Johnny Too Cold, Danger Mouse. His username is Danger Mouse. He said white people shouldn't be in South Africa in the first place. This other one posted a picture of a clown. This other one says, stay in your country and they will stop treating you like an unwanted pest. Because I say stop treating Nigerians like unwanted pests. He said, stay in your country and they will stop treating you like unwanted pests. I've given an example that proves that is a lie with the Uber situation that South Africa started. Ordering Ubers and all of that from South Africa and doing it like if it's a Nigerian ordering it just to make Nigerians lose money and to waste Nigerians' money. So to have, the comments just keep coming. Of course, my skin is tough, so it doesn't bother me, because another thing about the internet you have to understand is that how people treat you on the internet is different from how they will treat you if they see you in real life. If they see you in real life, they'll be bowing down and greeting you. All these people. So whatever people say on the internet never affect me, just like a video game to me. And it's like playing table tennis, battering back and forth. So all these comments, this is just because this is Nigeria. So people cannot, we cannot ignore the hatred that South Africa has. South Africans are the super racist. Yes, once upon a time there was so much racism and appetite against South Africans. But it doesn't change the fact that South Africans are terrible people today, and that they are the biggest pushers of appetite and racism against others. They even hate other countries around them and feel that they are better than everybody and everything. Every opportunity that touches them, they want to make sure that nobody else touches. Jobs, anything. You cannot, it's easier to become a citizen for a Nigerian to become a citizen of another country than to become a citizen of South Africa. That door is shut because you are Nigeria. So there's so much racism. South Africans are the biggest racists. So we have to address that. The treatment of white people, and the treatment of Nigerians and other Africans by South Africans. Because evil has to be repaid with evil. You cannot look at them and say, because of the appetite you faced years ago, we are going to ignore you facing justice. Just the same way the African Americans that are super racist to white people and are bringing all kinds of anti-white laws with the BLM and all the evil that Obama is pushing. We cannot say because of slavery of years past, we are going to allow you to discriminate against white people and continue. God is a God of justice. So we must address this and do something about these people. Thank you and God bless you.
Say this prayer audibly if you have not given your heart to Jesus Christ. Dear God, I believe in my heart that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came, died, and was raised from the dead to save me. I confess Him, Lord, over my life and ask you to give me your Holy Spirit to live within me. I receive your Spirit by faith and thank you for I am now born again. In Jesus' name, amen. If you just prayed that prayer, congratulations, you're now a Christian. Go to alfred.vip and get resources that will help you with your work with God.